The now
guys clapping for him.
Star Racing Yamaha has won more 250 championships than any other team in the last decade. Riders left, stars got hurt, rival teams spend millions trying to catch up. None of it changed a single thing. The same blue bikes kept ending up on the top step of the podium year after year with a different roster each time. Motocross dynasties are supposed to be built around one person. The sport's whole history is written that way. One transcendent talent rises, dominates for a window, then time or injuries close the door. Teams are just vehicles for that talent. They rise with the rider and fade when he's gone. Star Racing never got that memo. The team's been manufacturing championships with entirely different riders for over a decade, across entirely different eras, with one thing staying constant. They win. That's when the rest of the paddock realized this wasn't temporary. Bobby Regan isn't the person you picture when you think of the owner of the most dominant team in professional motocross. He's not a former professional rider. He's not a Silicon Valley backer. He's a car dealer from Wiggins, Mississippi, who owns a dealership called Star Chevrolet. The team is literally named after that dealership. Everything started there. When Regan launched the operation in 1999, it was a pure privateer effort. No factory contract, no serious budget. The funding came from an unusual source. His wife was a successful casino slot machine player. The money she won went directly into the race program. For a team that would eventually dominate the sport,
she'd like to go to the casinos, but she was a professional person playing in the casinos. She supported the team for the first 5 years on her winnings.
The whole thing started in a surprisingly unstable way. The important part wasn't where Regan came from. It was the kind of organization he believed motocross teams should become. By 2003, the team had won Supercross Privateer of the Year.
Competition in the privateer pits, they gave a new Toyota to the top privateer team and rider, and that was us. We won that.
2 years later, Yamaha came with official factory support for the 250 program. That's when the gap started widening. The moment Star Racing got factory backing, Regan didn't become more comfortable. He became more demanding. Star Racing built an environment where the standard never dropped, no matter who lined up under the tent. Past championships on other teams meant nothing. What mattered was this weekend's lap times. Elite standards created accountability. Pressure produced results. The management structure Regan built around himself, including Jeremy Coker and Brad Hoffman, runs on a single standard: perform or leave. This isn't a team that waits through slumps. Riders either adapted to the pressure quickly, or somebody else took the seat. What that environment created was a highly competitive culture. Only the riders who could handle an existence where their job security depended on their next result made it through. The ones who thrived were the toughest competitors in the sport, and there was always someone behind them, ready to take the seat without missing a single race weekend. The most revealing chapter of Star Racing's early dominance involves two riders who genuinely couldn't stand each other: Jeremy Martin and Cooper Webb. Between 2014 and 2016, both of them raced under the same tent, on the same bike, in the same class, and they despised one another.
They were pushing each other. Jeremy was fast to the turns, so Cooper got where it was amazing. Those two guys pushed each other so hard and pushed us as managers to excel in what.
Any other team would have tried to manage that situation. Bobby Regan did the opposite. Regan believed internal competition created sharper riders and faster development. Webb detailed exactly how Regan handled it. Regan would pull Webb aside and point out what Martin was doing better in certain corners. He'd do the same with Martin, highlighting Webb's strengths. The outcome was two riders who arrived at every race consumed by one objective: do not let that guy beat me. Martin captured back-to-back 250 motocross championships in 2014 and 2015. Webb won back-to-back 250 Supercross West titles in 2015 and 2016, then won the 2016 250 motocross championship. Star Racing had turned internal rivalry into a championship assembly line. Championships aren't won on psychology alone. You need machinery that backs it all up. This is where Star Racing's advantage became genuinely difficult for anyone else in the paddock to absorb. The Yamaha YZ250F changed everything for Star Racing once Yamaha introduced the reverse cylinder engine design. The bike carried power differently and gave the team a platform with far more potential than anything they'd been working with before. Once Brad Hoffman and the Star Racing crew started refining it, the bikes coming out of that shop became some of the fastest in the entire class. The speed advantage started changing how races unfolded. Starts began tilting heavily in Star Racing's favor, and once one of those blue bikes got clean air early, the rest of the field usually spent the main event trying to claw time back instead of attacking for the lead.
Yamaha told me for 10 years that we got a new bike coming. Well, the next year, same bike. Carbureted, 5-valve head bike, not competitive. Brad did the best he could do. We did win some motos, but not many. It was just not competitive. But in 14, the new bike came out that was fuel injected, and we absolutely started winning.
Rival teams kept throwing money into testing programs, engine development, and setup changes, searching for answers. The frustrating part was that the gap never fully disappeared. Even Mitch Payton, who runs Pro Circuit Kawasaki and is arguably the most respected engine builder the sport has ever produced, acknowledged that the Yamaha platform held a structural advantage. Payton noted that the reverse cylinder design let the Yamaha make power in ways the other bikes in the class struggled to match, and that Star Racing had eliminated every remaining engineering hurdle through years of obsessive refinement and weight reduction. When the man who built the previous dynasty tips his hat to your bikes, that tells you everything you need to know about where the sport stood. For anyone who watched motocross through the 2000s, Pro Circuit Kawasaki was the dynasty. Mitch Payton's team set the standard for what a 250 program could be. Every top amateur wanted to sign with them. Every championship ran through their tent. They were the organization that everyone else was chasing. Star Racing didn't just compete with them, they buried them in the statistics. From 2006 to 2015, Kawasaki won 40% of all 250 class championships across Supercross and Motocross combined. Yamaha, across that same decade, won just 13%. The gap wasn't close. Then Star Racing fully matured. Between 2016 and 2025, Yamaha captured 45% of all 250 championships, while Pro Circuit Kawasaki's share collapsed to 6%.
We evolved pretty quickly from 14, when we got that new motorcycle, to where we are now. In the past 10 years, we've won 45% of all the championships.
For years, the fastest amateurs in America dreamed about Pro Circuit. Then the center of gravity shifted. The next generation started looking at Star Racing the same way earlier riders looked at Mitch Payton's program. The old dynasty didn't fade, it got mathematically erased. The shift becomes clear when you hear what Bobby Regan once said. If you rely on individual human brilliance, you've already built something that will eventually fail. And the moment you hear that, the 2026 season makes total sense. Because in 2026, 5 different Star Racing riders won races in a single Supercross series. That's not a roster. That's when the rest of the paddock realized just how deep the machine had become. In January 2021, Bobby Regan purchased 94 acres of land in Cairo, Georgia from Ricky Carmichael. This wasn't just another training facility. Carmichael built the goat farm during the peak of the training revolution that changed modern motocross, when riders stopped treating preparation like conditioning and started treating it like a full-time profession. Championships were built there, rival riders trained there, and over time, the entire sport started adapting to the standards that place created. Regan didn't just buy the dirt. He absorbed everything that came with it.
The last place we went to, and it was on a Sunday, was Ricky Carmichael, and Ricky and his mother and daddy were there. It wasn't just Ricky, but his mother said, we wouldn't sell this thing to anybody else. Because we know that you're going to make this into something. That's true.
The goat farm became the center of the entire Star Racing ecosystem. Between July 2021 and January 2022, the team constructed a 12,000 square foot race shop on the property. The facility houses both the 250 and 450 team operations with dedicated engine building, suspension development, and an on-site dynamometer. They process 45 motorcycles a year through that building. The organization became the second largest employer in Grady County, Georgia, maintaining 33 permanent staff members, not counting the riders. This isn't a race team anymore in any traditional sense. It's a corporation that happens to build motorcycles and win championships. By requiring all contracted riders to physically relocate to the Florida and Georgia region and train at the farm, Star Racing pulled their athletes completely out of the Southern California scene that had dominated the sport's culture for decades. Away from competing training facilities, from distractions, from the informal industry connections that have quietly derailed more than a few careers. Every training session, on the bike or off, happened inside a system the team controlled entirely. The farm wasn't just a practice track. It became the center of the entire program. Physical preparation at Star Racing falls under former professional racer Gareth Swanepoel, who runs the conditioning program for the entire organization. His approach directly challenged one of motocross' oldest fears. That heavy weight training causes arm pump, the debilitating condition where forearms swell under sustained gripping load and riders lose control. For years, teams avoided serious strength work because of that belief. Swane's conditioning program challenged a belief that had existed in motocross for years, that serious strength training created arm pump and made riders tighter on the bike. Star Racing went the opposite direction. The riders trained hard in the gym, built real strength, and treated physical preparation more like traditional stick-and-ball sports than old-school motocross culture ever had. The goal wasn't to turn riders into bodybuilders. It was to make them harder to break down over the course of a season. And once Star Racing committed to that system, there was no flexibility around it. Michael Moseman wanted to continue working with his longtime independent trainer, Philippe Barbier, who was highly respected in the performance world. Star Racing refused the request outright. If you signed up with them, you trained inside the Star program. Everybody inside the program trained under the same system and the same expectations. The philosophy was simple. If the system kept producing championships, nobody inside the organization was going to freelance their own approach. When COVID disrupted the racing calendar in 2020 and compressed the turnaround between seasons, Star Racing didn't back off the workload or extend recovery time. Swanepoel had the riders rolling straight into Supercross preparation almost immediately. No long reset period, no easing back into training. The schedule changed and the program adapted without slowing down. The most underappreciated element of Star Racing's sustained run is what happens before a rider ever turns professional. The team became aggressive about identifying talent early and bringing young riders into the system years before they reach the pro level. By the time many of these riders line up for their first professional gate drop, they've already spent years around Star Racing equipment, trainers, testing programs, and expectations. Caden Dudney, Caden Manier, and Landon Gordon have already started moving through the professional ranks after developing inside that system. Carson Wood is still coming up through the amateur side. The result is a development structure that keeps feeding new talent into the program before rival teams can fully react.
They're all of them different. They're all of them really good. Those guys have to work so hard because they ride with those pro riders most every day. And they have to, they watch those pro riders doing what they're doing, and it's a great program where they can do that and compete with the top in the world.
That's the part rival teams find most frustrating. Even while Deegan and Davies become the face of the class, another championship caliber rider was already developing inside the same system. The practical effect is that when a professional rider goes down with a serious injury, Star Racing doesn't scramble. They slide in a replacement who already knows how the bike feels, knows the team's expectations, and is physically prepared to compete at the front. The kind of injuries that normally send teams into panic mode barely interrupt the machine here. The injury list over the years isn't short either. Eli Tomac ruptured his Achilles tendon in 2023 while leading the Supercross championship, then suffered a severe thumb injury in 2024. Nick Romano, signed to a factory deal at just 14 years old, broke both arms just before his professional debut, then spent years battling setbacks before ultimately being released. Levi Kitchen, Pierce Brown, Jeremy Martin all went through serious injuries during their time under the Star tent. None of it shifted the championship trajectory in any meaningful way. Another rider stepped forward. The wins continued. Having mathematically owned the 250 class, Star Racing made a move in 2021 that the rest of the paddock had been quietly dreading. They took over Yamaha's official 450 factory program, the premier class where pressure, expectations, and careers all get heavier fast.
Since I had been to Japan a lot, and I was really close friends with the people over there, they called me about the 450 team and would we take it over. So that's where that started.
The impact was immediate. Dylan Ferrandis, who had already swept the 250 Supercross West title in both 2019 and 2020, plus the 2020 250 Motocross Championship, moved directly into the 450 class under the Star Factory banner and won the 2021 Pro Motocross 450 Championship in his first season on the big bike. Most riders spend years trying to figure the class out. Star Racing walked in and won it immediately. Then Eli Tomac signed for 2022, and suddenly the most complete rider in the sport was paired with the most complete program in the paddock. Tomac didn't need to be rebuilt or reshaped. He already knew exactly how he wanted to train, ride, and prepare. Star Racing simply gave him a platform stable enough to maximize all of it. The fit was immediate, and once the season started, the rest of the field spent most of the year trying to keep up with a combination that barely showed weakness. Tomac delivered immediately in 2022, winning both the Supercross 450 Championship and the Pro Motocross 450 Championship in his first season with the team, while also helping Team USA win the Motocross of Nations alongside teammate Justin Cooper. The 450 class folded into Star Racing's orbit just as the 250 class had years before.
He's also a guy that's got this heart I'm talking about, and he's real intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there when he won the first race he ever ran. You know, who in the world is this guy? That was at Sacramento.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is this guy? Nobody ever heard of him. He didn't just win. He won by a long way.
Then Cooper Webb came back to Star Racing, building on his career total of 30 Supercross 450 wins before capturing the 2025 Supercross 450 Championship under the Star banner.
When Coop wins the 2025 Supercross Championship, how special was it to see him win that this year or last year?
No, it was absolutely unbelievable.
Christian Craig came back on a 2-year hybrid arrangement, racing the 450 while simultaneously mentoring the 250 development roster. Every contract, every personnel decision had a purpose beyond the individual rider it involved. The 2026 Supercross season is where Star Racing's control of the sport stopped being expressible in normal competitive terms. Across 17 rounds of 250 class racing, the team won 16 of them. Both regional titles came home. Haiden Deegan took the West, New Zealand's Cole Davies took the East. 5 different Star Racing riders won races during that single season. 7 different riders stood on the podium. Across the season, 8 different Star Racing riders finished inside the top 5 at individual rounds. More than half the roster won races while Star Racing controlled almost the entire 17-round season. At a certain point, the rest of the paddock stopped reacting to Star Racing wins with surprise and started reacting to them with frustration. Riders would fight through an entire main event only to look up and see 3 blue bikes inside the top 5 again. Rival teams weren't trying to stop one superstar anymore. They were trying to stop a structure that kept producing new frontrunners every season. The pressure changed. Every time another star rider broke through, the gap between them and the rest of the class started feeling less like momentum and more like infrastructure. Deegan himself had been building to this for years. He won the 250 SMX World Championship as a rookie in 2023, won the 250 Motocross title and defended the SMX crown in 2024, won the 250 Supercross West and the 250 Motocross title again in 2025, then rolled into 2026 and took the West Championship a second consecutive time. 5 titles across 3 consecutive years of professional racing. He'd barely been a professional for 3 seasons when the 5th one landed.
Haiden has been the easiest person that I've ever worked with and will do exactly what you say. He's an unbelievable athlete, and has he got a big heart? Watch him. Everybody knows he does.
In the 450 class, Ken Roxon captured the 2026 Supercross Championship for Suzuki in a run that was genuinely emotional and historically meaningful for a rider who had survived years of catastrophic injuries. A deserved result, and a moment the sport needed. But even in the Premier class, Star Racing's presence at the front of every grid never faded. The team's documentary series, Beyond the Gate, now spanning 5 seasons, gives the organization complete control over how its story gets told. Episodes 30 and 31 detail the 250 SMX playoff scenarios, following Deegan through a broken collarbone and tracking Tomac's podium runs. An injury isn't a failure, it's a chapter. Bobby Regan's appearance on Gypsy Tales is worth your time. He talks openly about rider psychology, contract negotiations, and how the whole thing started. There's no attempt to soften the image. The transparency is a weapon. Even riders who've left the organization still reinforce the machine's reputation. Nick Romano, discussing his release, talked openly about how difficult it was to hold on to a Star Racing ride once results and injuries started going the wrong direction. Around the paddock, stories like that only added to the belief that Star Racing operated differently than everyone else. Inside the program, the pressure never really relaxed. Mechanics, trainers, managers, and former riders all described versions of the same environment. Internal competition never disappeared, expectations kept rising, and championships only raised the standard higher. By that point, Star Racing wasn't just another factory program anymore. It had become the center of the entire conversation around modern motocross. Every team in this sport has spent the last decade trying to figure out what Star Racing is doing. Rival organizations upgraded facilities, copied training methods, and threw massive contracts at star riders trying to slow the machine down. The results have been consistent. The riders change teams, and the wins stop. Jeremy Martin left and the team won more championships without him. Webb left and the team won more championships without him. Plessinger, Ferrandis, all moved on at various points. The pattern never shifted. The next rider stepped in already understanding the pressure, the expectations, and how hard it was to survive inside that program. Different names kept rotating through the roster, and the results barely changed. Star Racing has been successfully competing in AMA Supercross and Pro Motocross since 1999, winning 25 championship titles between 250 and 450 classes in Supercross and Motocross. They built one of the most complete competitive systems motocross has ever seen. And more importantly, they built it to last. For young amateur riders coming up through the sport now, the goal isn't just earning a factory contract anymore. It's earning a Star Racing contract specifically. That's the shift. At some point, Star stopped feeling like one elite team among several and became the organization every other program measured itself against. Not because of one rider, because no matter how many riders left, got hurt, or aged out, the machine kept producing championships anyway. At a certain point, watching the 250 class stopped feeling like watching a normal championship battle and started feeling like the rest of the field was trying to survive a machine that just kept replacing riders and getting faster. What the rest of the paddock is actually racing against isn't a roster of talented individuals. It's an organization that spent over a decade turning preparation, development, and pressure into a competitive advantage the rest of the sport still hasn't fully matched. By the time a Star Racing rider rolls onto the gate, the race has already been influenced by decisions made months or years earlier that no rival program has managed to fully replicate. 16 wins in 17 rounds is not an accident. It's the output of a system built to make that result feel inevitable. At this point, who actually has the best chance of stopping Star Racing long-term? Pro Circuit, KTM, Club MX, Triumph, or nobody? Thanks for watching, and stay wicked.